Elon Musk stood in court. The judge, sitting high on the bench, peered down at Musk, impatient and frustrated. This was not a typical instance. Musk was penalized for wearing a plain silver Christian crucifix around his neck. The cross, small but obvious, dangled over his black t-shirt, drawing everyone's attention. Many thought it was ludicrous. Were you fined for wearing a cross? In a free country, are religious symbols to be respected? However, the judge remained solid in his attitude. The courtroom regulations expressly barred the display of religious symbols, regardless of who you were. Mr. Musk, the judge stated, you have breached the court's dress code by wearing the cross. We do not accept open displays of religious symbols in our courtroom. Musk raised an eyebrow. So you are fining me for my faith? He inquired, his tone mild but with an edge that kept the room quiet. The suspense was palpable as everyone waited for the judge's response. This has nothing to do with your faith, Mr. Musk, the judge said coldly. This is about maintaining the neutrality of the courtroom. You have been fined $10,000 for breaking our rules. The fine meant nothing to Musk. He, as a billionaire, could easily afford it. But it was not the goal. The problem wasn't the money. It was a principle. Musk was not afraid to take on a challenge, especially when it came to personal freedom. Rather than accept the fine, Musk did something unexpected. I'll pay the fine, Musk stated quietly. But first, I'd like you to answer a question. The court, apparently disturbed by Musk's brazenness, sighed. What is it? Musk smiled, that iconic grin that suggested he knew something others didn't. Isn't this court bound by the U.S. Constitution? The room went silent. Everyone knew where Musk was going, but no one dared to ask. The judge was caught off surprise and hesitated before responding. Of course, he replied. The Constitution is the supreme law of the land. Musk nodded. So, could you please explain how fining me for wearing a cross, which is an obvious representation of my religious beliefs, does not violate my First Amendment rights? The room shifted. People whispered and exchanged eyes. Musk was spinning the situation on its head, and the court wasn't expecting it. The judge, apparently embarrassed by Musk's inquiry, straightened his stance. Mr. Musk, you're in a courtroom, not a public space. There are rules in place to preserve order and neutrality. Musk's smile did not fade. Neutrality? You are doing the reverse by punishing me for expressing my religious belief. You are discriminating against me for following my faith. The judge opened his lips to react, but Musk hadn't finished. I am sure you are aware of the First Amendment, correct? Religious freedom. The Constitution states that no law may impede the free exercise of religion. The judge seemed noticeably uncomfortable. Musk was not your typical defendant, and everyone saw that he had the upper hand in the debate. His calm demeanor contrasted strikingly with the judge's increasing irritation. You're twisting the argument, the judge remarked, attempting to recover control. This is not about religious freedom. It is about the courtroom's neutrality. Isn't establishing neutrality by excluding religious symbols an infringement on religious freedom? Musk pushed. You are not being neutral by telling me that I cannot wear my cross. You are aggressively suppressing my rights. The judge fell silent, evidently unable to respond in a way that would not support Musk's claim. The courtroom had come to a halt, with all eyes focused on Musk and the judge's exchange. It was no longer about the fine. It was about something larger. The courtroom started to grumble. Everyone knew Musk was onto something. He wasn't simply contesting the fine. He was revealing a far deeper issue. The judge was clearly fighting to maintain his cool. Your Honor, Musk continued, his voice firm, if you penalize me for wearing this cross, you are setting a precedent that anyone can be punished for their religious beliefs, even in a country founded on religious freedom. The judge looked around the courtroom, knowing he was losing control of the proceedings. Mr. Musk, this court is not here to argue the Constitution. Musk leaned slightly forward, his gaze fixed on the judge. So why are you punishing me for exercising my constitutional rights? The The tension in the courtroom was nearly unbearable. The judge had no instant response, and the stillness that followed was telling. Everyone could see that Musk had conveyed his point loudly and clearly. But Musk wasn't finished yet. He leaned back and crossed his arms. "I'll tell you what," he said quietly but firmly. "I will pay your fine, but I intend to dispute it. And if necessary, I will take this all the way to the top." The judge, plainly outmatched, did not say anything. Musk had absolutely flipped the scenario. What began as a simple fine for a dress code violation has escalated into a full-fledged constitutional dispute. As Musk exited the courtroom, whispering trailed him. Everyone knew it wasn't over. Musk was not only fighting for himself, he was ready to challenge the entire system. The story of Musk's courtroom showdown spread like wildfire. Social media was awash with debates over religious freedom and whether Musk had been harmed. Musk's system trended after a few hours. People from all over commented on the topic, with many questioning how a guy should be penalized for wearing a religious symbol. One pundit on a prominent news show stated that he is correct. "This is America. What good is the First Amendment if we can't freely speak our faith?" Others disagreed. The court has its own regulations, and Musk should have followed them just like everyone else. Just because he's renowned doesn't make him above the law. However, the discussion had already shifted. It wasn't only about Musk anymore. It was all about what the fine symbolized. The media frenzy grew. The subject of whether Elon Musk's fine was reasonable or a violation of his constitutional rights dominated news channels, talk shows, and online forums alike. Musk kept largely silent, allowing the public conversation to proceed without interference. Behind the scenes, Musk was planning his next move. He didn't back down from a challenge, especially one that jeopardized his freedom of expression. His legal team, a collection of prominent attorneys with expertise in constitutional law, was already devising a plan. What surprised everyone was that Musk, despite his reputation for technological inventiveness, had a surprising legal mind. As the days progressed, it became evident that Musk was not only a technological genius, but also a legal expert. Reports surfaced that Musk was substantially involved in developing the legal arguments himself. He wasn't simply sitting back and letting his lawyers handle the situation. He was actively leading the strategy. The case, filed in federal court, questions the validity of the fee. The legal argument was straightforward but effective. Musk's First Amendment rights were violated. The courtroom's attempt to establish impartiality had effectively curtailed his religious freedom. By fining him for wearing a crucifix, the court was effectively punishing him for his views. The lawsuit quickly drew the attention of legal experts across the country. Constitutional scholars weighed in, with many believing that Musk had a compelling case. Others, however, remained doubtful. One legal analyst explained that the courtroom regulations exist for a reason. If Musk wins this case, it might lead to widespread disruptions in courtrooms around the country. However, Musk's confidence never wavered. He understood that this wasn't just about him. It was about establishing a precedent. He intended to demonstrate that no one, including the courts, had the authority to infringe on someone's religious freedom. As the court date approached, Musk's legal team submitted documents presenting their case in detail. The legal paper, painstakingly drafted and replete with references to previous Supreme Court rulings, was a work of legal logic. What amazed everyone was that Musk had written a large amount of it himself. It became evident that his legal abilities considerably exceeded what everyone had anticipated. On the day of the hearing, the courtroom was full. Reporters, legal experts, and inquisitive observers packed every seat, ready to watch Musk's battle with the legal system. The atmosphere was electrifying and the tension was evident. When Musk walked into the courtroom, all eyes were on him. He appeared cool and composed as he dressed in a sharp suit and wore the same silver cross around his neck. This time, he was not present as the defendant. He was there as a plaintiff, ready to confront the system that had attempted to silence him. The judge, not the one who had imposed the fine, entered the chamber. The case had been transferred to a federal court, and this judge appeared more qualified to handle the complicated constitutional issues at hand. Musk's chief attorney delivered a stunning opening statement. "Your Honor, this case is about more than just a fine. It concerns the fundamental right to religious freedom. The lower court's decision to fine Mr. Musk for wearing a cross violated his First Amendment right. We're here to ensure that no one, including the courts, can violate those rights." The judge paid close attention, but it was evident that Musk's evidence was the highlight of the proceedings. When Musk took the stand, the courtroom went silent. His manner was serene, but the intensity in his gaze made it plain that he was in complete control. "Mr. Musk," the attorney asked, "could you explain why you decided to challenge the fine?" Musk nodded, waiting a moment before responding. "I'm challenging the fine because I believe in freedom," he replied, his voice steady but firm. "Not only do I have freedom, but so does everyone. Allowing a court to penalize someone for their views promotes a system that inhibits what makes us human. We have the right to express ourselves and our belief." His comments captivated the entire room. It wasn't only about the legal issue anymore. It was about the core ideals Musk was fighting for, and it was evident that he wasn't doing it for personal gain. He was doing it for everyone who has ever faced persecution for expressing their ideas. As Musk proceeded to testify, the mood in the courtroom became increasingly tense. The judge, despite his composure, was clearly intrigued by Musk's quiet but forceful defense. Musk wasn't simply reciting legal reasons. He was fervently defending a fundamental right. The opposing counsel, Mr. Musk, interjected, stating that the courtroom regulations are in place to maintain order and neutrality. "How do you reply to the accusation that wearing a religious emblem violates neutrality?" Musk maintained an unwavering stare at the attorney. "Neutrality does not imply the absence of belief," he explained. "It entails honoring everyone's beliefs equally. The court was not neutral when it forced me to remove my cross. It singled me out because of my faith." The court arched an eyebrow, evidently impressed with Musk's logic. However, the opposing attorney refused to back down. "But, Mr. Musk, the rules apply equally to everyone. Where do we draw the line when it comes to allowing religious symbols in court?" Musk did not hesitate. He said, "We draw the line where the Constitution draws it. The First Amendment protects my right to profess my religion as long as it does not violate anybody else's right. Wearing a cross does not harm anyone. It is a personal manifestation of my religion." The judge leaned forwards. His interest had certainly heightened. Musk had transformed the courtroom into an intellectual battleground, and it was becoming evident that he was more than ready for the fight. As the hours passed, the debates became more heated. Both sides delivered their reasons passionately, but Musk's cool confidence never faltered. He was in charge, and it was evident that the judge was starting to see things his way. But the true turning point occurred when Musk made one more, unexpected move. He stood up to address the court saying, "Your Honor, I'm not only asking for the fine to be reversed. I'm asking for something bigger." The courtroom held their breath, anticipating Musk's next comment. "I'm requesting a rule that will guarantee the religious liberties of every American who enters a courtroom. I'm asking for a resolution that guarantees that no one will ever be fined or penalized for expressing their ideas." The judge gazed at Musk, evidently surprised by the extent of his request. Musk had just transformed a simple fine into a potentially historic case, one that may revolutionize how religious freedom was handled in courtrooms around the country. The courtroom waited in nervous expectation while the judge pondered. What began as a modest, seemingly unimportant fine had turned into a massive case, with the potential to establish a precedent for years. The media was buzzing outside the courthouse, with analysts speculating on the outcome. Some feared Musk had gone too far, requesting a finding that extended beyond the scope of his initial lawsuit. Others thought Musk's argument was strong enough to win not only his lawsuit, but also a significant victory for religious liberty. Eventually, the judge returned to the courtroom. Everyone held their breath as he started to speak. After considerable study, the judge stated, his voice firm, "I have made a decision. Mr. Musk, you have raised major constitutional issues in this case, which the court cannot ignore. The fine levied on you for wearing a cross is hereby reversed." A rush of relief swept over the courtroom, but the judge wasn't finished. Furthermore, the judge stated that the courtroom's regulation forbidding religious insignia violates the First Amendment. As a result, I am announcing a decision that prohibits this court and any other court in this jurisdiction from imposing sanctions on anyone for expressing their religious belief. The courtroom erupted in murmuring. Musk had done it. He had not only won his case. He had won a triumph for religious liberty that will be remembered for years to come. Musk remained quiet, his expression enigmatic, but his eyes showed a glimmer of satisfaction. He had stood his ground, defending not just his own rights, but also the rights of countless others. As he exited the courtroom, surrounded by reporters and photographers, Musk's words echoed in the minds of everyone who had watched the historic trial. This wasn't about a fine, Musk explained, his voice calm but forceful. This was about freedom, and I will always fight for it. In the days after the verdict, the media couldn't stop raving about Musk's victory. Legal experts welcomed it as a watershed moment, one that could transform how religious freedom is treated in courtrooms across the country. The decision was quoted in legal journals, debated in law schools, and discussed in households across America. Musk, on the other hand, resumed his normal life, his win but another chapter in his lengthy history of defying the system. However, this time it was not about technology or business. It was about something much deeper. People began to view Musk in a new light. He wasn't merely a millionaire tech magnate who transformed industries. He was now viewed as a supporter of personal liberty, eager to fight for what he believed in at any cost. In the end, Musk's battle was more than simply a cross and a punishment. It was about the right to be yourself wherever you are, including in court. And for that, Elon Musk had achieved more than simply a legal triumph. He had earned the admiration of millions, and his legacy as a freedom fighter would live on forever. Elon Musk's landmark trial triumph paved the way for stronger protections for religious liberty in legal situations. Courts across the country began to reconsider their regulations governing personal expression, particularly the exhibition of religious symbols. Judges, court officials, and legal experts questioned whether Musk's case could serve as a precedent for other institutions. In the months that followed, several high-profile cases arose in which people were motivated by Musk's legal battle to challenge similar limits in courtrooms and other public venues. These instances, such as Musk versus State of California, carried the conversation even farther, raising questions about the true line between order and personal expression. Lawyers who were previously dubious of Musk's cause found themselves relying on the legal precedent he established. The decision was frequently cited in cases with nothing to do with courtroom clothing. The decision was used to advocate for greater protections for religious freedoms in schools, government institutions, and even workplaces. Musk has become a symbol of personal rights campaigning. The media, always eager to follow his every move, dubbed him not only a technological revolutionist, but also a constitutional rights advocate. He began to receive messages of gratitude from religious leaders, activists, and regular residents, who saw his case as a beacon of hope in an increasingly complex legal landscape. Musk, on the other hand, had no desire to be in the spotlight this time. To him, the judicial struggle had been about principle rather than fame. He continued to work at SpaceX, Tesla, and his other ventures, but there was a newfound admiration for his persistence and willingness to challenge the system. The ruling's cultural impact became clearer over time. Musk's success has gently changed people's perceptions of free expression in public areas. For the first time in a long time, religious freedom was being considered not only in legal terms, but also as an important component of the larger discussion of individual rights.